Okay, so it's 3:30. It's time for us to start. So this lecture, in our previous lecture, we talked about manufacturing systems and how do they relate to the design of facilities. Today, we're going to have a similar lecture, but looking at the different aspects of the facilities design. And we have to have a good understanding of how the supply chain and the supply chain management is also related to that process of designing a facility. So today we're gonna spend some time talking about supply chain management and the aspects that are related to the design of a facility. So this lecture is connected to that first objective, to develop an understanding of the principles of facilities location, layout, and material handling systems, and to practice the design of facilities. And the agenda for this afternoon is the following. We're going to start with understanding what is supply chain management. What is the supply chain strategy framework? What are the components of a supply chain? And what are the major obstacles and common problems faced when designing facilities and the supply chain for a company? So some statistics here. So this is just for comparison purposes, the amount of transportation, the equivalent, and we are looking at years 1990, 1996. I have some new statistics for years 2000. But you can see that only in 6 years, there was an increase in terms of freight transportation, the inventory expense, almost 1/3 more. Administrative expenses also increased. The logistic related activity for the United States accounted for almost 11% of the gross national product. So in 1988, 898 billion were spent domestically for supply chain activities. That number increased to 1,160 billion of inventory in the United States economy in the early 2000s. So a lot of money. Lately, after the pandemic, that number is much higher because a lot of activity with now delivery systems and so on. So this is a big component when we are talking about designing a facility. This is a big component. We need to take this into account because there's a large amount of money that is going into transportation, inventory, and administering a facility. So traditionally, the cost of breakdown of a manufactured good, you can see how much is going to profit, about 10%. The supply chain cost is about 20%. Marketing costs 25%, and the manufacturing cost is 45%. So again, large portion, you see the manufacturing is less than a half, and then the rest is related to some of the activities that are needed for taking that product to the customer. So the effort spent for supply chain activities are mostly invisible for the customer. We don't see that as a customer, but there are a big portion of what we are paying for our products. So if you remember, Compaq was a computer manufacturing company, and they are no longer alive. And they lost a lot of money in sales in 1995 because laptops were not available when the customers needed them. You know about Dell. That was their main goal as a company. They want to customize, and they want to bring those computers, the customized computers, into the customer hands as soon as possible. And that impacted this company. Procter & Gamble estimated saved retail customers $65 million in 18 months by collaboration, resulting in a better match of supply and demand. And when a 1 gig processor was introduced by AMD, the price of the 800 meg processor dropped by 3%. So all those things are impacting the way you deal with your customer in terms of supply chain management. So the importance of supply chain management understood by some. So AMR research is the biggest issue enterprise face today is intelligent visibility of their supply chain, both upstream and down. So having an understanding of how much is in production, manufacturing, how much is in inventory, how much it is in transporting, the supply chain. So having that visibility is a major challenge. Forrester Research company needs to sense and proactively respond to anticipated variations in supply and demand by adopting emerging technologies such as intelligent agents to boost their operational agility. Firms need to transform the static supply chains into adaptive supply networks. So we lived 2020. Remember when we started the pandemic, there were a shortage of products, things that you would never thought. Toilet paper and other things disappeared. So having a better understanding of the supply chain might help you avoid those type of situations. Talking about someone that was in charge of making those orders, they were saying that it was not that the toilet paper was in shortage, it was because the size of these packages was so big, and when people started taking them, the areas where they were stored were looking empty faster than the other areas. So people started thinking, okay, so these are things that are going away, I need to grab more. So everything connected to, okay, so if you let people know we have enough, if you let people know more is coming, you put a limit on how much a person can buy at the beginning, all those things can help in keeping your supply chain working better. The Gartner Group, by 2024, 90% of enterprises that fail to apply supply chain management technology and processes to increase their agility will lose their status as preferred suppliers. So this announcement in that statement, agility can be increased continuously. In terms of top 25 supply chain, this was in 2019. You can see at the top, these are the top 5. Apple, Procter & Gamble, Amazon, McDonald's, Unilever. And then here are the rest of them. So most of them are companies that we are familiar with. So these are in terms of the best performance for 2019. We have Colgate, Nestle, Pepsi, and so on, Starbucks, and so on. So the top 25 supply chains report come out every November. So the supply chain management generated value, minimizing supply chain costs while keeping a reasonable service level. That's the goal. We want to keep the cost down, and we want to have our customers happy. So those things that's the balance, that's the trade-off that you want to achieve. Customer satisfaction comes in terms of you're delivering the product on time, providing a good quality, and the customer is happy with the product that is receiving. This is how supply chain management contributes to the bottom line. So supply chain management is not strictly a cost reduction paradigm. We are not just looking to minimize the costs associated with supply chain management. We are trying to find that balance between providing a good service to the customer while keeping the cost low. In terms of what is part of a supply chain, you can see here we have the manufacturing facility. We have a supplier that is sending the products or the parts to the manufacturer, and then once everything is completed, we have a distribution that is taking that to the retailer and then finally to the customers. So aims to match supply and demand. That's our goal. So we want to make sure that we are satisfying the demand available. So we are not overproducing or we are not producing less than what is needed. So again, there's a balance between those two. And this achieved the right, or is achieved by providing the right product in the right price, in the right store, the right quantity, the right customer, the right time. All that together provides you with higher profits. So it is very challenging. We're trying to look at these many aspects. Each one of them has some uncertainty. So you're trying to balance out that uncertainty in order to make sure that you're providing what's needed at the right time to the right customer. So here we have some examples, supply chain for detergent. We have information about the supplier materials from timber industry, paper manufacturer, chemical manufacturer, all those providing some type of material that is needed for production. Chemical manufacturer, packaging, plastic cup producer, and then all this goes to the manufacturer. Manufacturer put together the product, and then you have a distribution center that is in charge of taking the product to supermarkets, and then the customer gets the product from the supermarket. So here's some information about the flow in the supply chain. So from the supplier to the customer, the material information is going both ways. So I need to understand the customer. Supplier has to provide some type of product associated with those needs. And the customer is the one that funds the operations of the manufacturer or the supplier. Supply chain management is concerned with the management and controls of the flows of material, information, and finances in supply chain. So again, you can see here an example in terms of a multi or international supply chain. So we have suppliers from Thailand, India, all them sending products or materials to different places, in this case, Mexico. Mexico having a logistic distribution going or manufacturing happening between Mexico and Texas, and from Texas distribution into the DC or distribution centers, and from there to the retailers. So this is typical for many products. Parts coming from all over the world, they're put together in a specific location, and from there, those are distributed to the areas where they're needed. So supply chain management is concerned with the management of control of the flows of material, information, and finances. The task of the supply chain management is to design, plan, and execute the activities of the different stages. So that's to provide the desired levels of services that we mentioned already to supply chain customers' profitability. So what is the importance of supply chain management? In the 2000s, the US companies spent $1 trillion, again, 10% of the gross national product on supply-related activities, such as movement, storage, and control of products of the supply chain. So if especially in this I-35 corridor, you are there during peak hours, you'll see a lot of trucks. Those trucks are part of the supply chain for many, many companies. So that's something that happens here a lot. So eliminating the inefficiencies in supply chains can save millions of dollars for the companies. And that's why a lot of companies are trying to come up with storage warehouses located in the right place so they can distribute to different places. If they have a high demand, like right now you're seeing in Amazon, they have their own delivered trucks. So they are no longer waiting for other companies to distribute their packages. So if they find that they have a high demand in certain areas, they can put a warehouse close to those areas, and they can have their own delivery trucks to supply those areas. So, so frequently supply shortages, that can create a problem. That was something that we mentioned or we discussed last time when we are moving towards a pool or just-in-time system. If you don't have a reliable supplier, that can create trouble. So because then the rest of the supply chain will be affected. But also you don't want to have high inventories, because high inventory is creating another problem, the need of having high or very large warehouses so you can put your products and then move them when they need it, when they are needed. Making sure that you get into the retailers the right time, and that you satisfy the needs of the customers. And the needs and the demands are also changing. They change all the time. So it depends of the season, it depends of the weather, it can depend on many things. So eliminating the inefficiencies in the supply chains can save billions of dollars. A generic supply chain, we have the supply, which we have the sources, which are the plants, the vendors, the ports. We have regional warehouses. These are stocking points. We have field warehouses, also stocking points. And then at the end of the chain, we have the customers, the demand centers, and the sinks. So customers, they're not necessarily only the persons who are buying these products. You can have a customer that could be a supplier for another piece of the supply chain. So they're buying product from you, and then they're supplying some of their products to other people in the supply chain. So we have the purchase, transportation, inventory happening in between. So after those are moved through the supply chain, we keep inventory and they're moved to the right location at the right time. So the cycle view of the supply chain. At the top, we have the customer order, which is made by the customer. We have the retailer. Every time customer grabs something from the retailer, we keep an inventory. We know how many units are available. If we need to buy more, get to the replenishment cycle. That will trigger the need of going back to the distributor, manufacturing more parts or more products so we can replenish the retailers. And in order for you to manufacture, you have to go to your suppliers and buy more parts, more products, more materials so you can manufacture your products. So a lot of cycles happening. Again, a lot of uncertainty. Everything starts here. There's a need for a product, and from there you go through the chain. So any cycle, at the top we have the customer arrival, customer triggers an order, suppliers fulfill the order, and then the customer receives the order. Going back to our discussion last week, we talked about push and just-in-time manufacturing systems. So pull versus push. What instigates the movement of the work in the system? In a push system, work release is based on downstream demand forecast. So we keep inventory to meet the actual demand, and we act proactively. So what that means is I'm at the person that is making the decisions in terms of production. So I'm the, let's say, the supervisor, and I'm working on a push system. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going into the historical data. I'm looking at my patterns in terms of demand. And I'm using that historical data to create some forecasting models. This could be time series models, many different ARIMA models, or exponential smooth models. So any type of forecasting models that you are using for your product, you can use that historical information to try to forecast what's going to happen, let's say in 2 weeks, 3 months, 1 year, depending on how far you want to go into your forecast. So that's what we do in terms of making decisions for this push system. So let's say we use this forecasting model. I'm telling, I'm going to need, I don't know, 10,000 units for next month. So I'm going to be making decisions to produce those 10,000 units based on those forecasts. So what that's going to do is you're going to build, or you're going to manufacture all those products. You're going to put those into an inventory, or you're going to put those in a warehouse. You are acting proactively. So you're basically saying, I'm going to put these products here. I know someone, or we're going to have this demand, so I'm going to pull them from the warehouse when they're needed. In the pull system, which is what we discussed in terms of just in time, what really is based on actual demand, or the actual status of the downstream customers. So what this is saying, okay, I'm not going to base my production on historical data. I'm just going to wait for the customer to make an order, and then I'm going to be producing based on those orders. But what that's creating is some lead times that are long, because you have to wait, the customer will have to wait to get that order because it is produced when needed. So in the push system, that's not the case. In the push system, you put the order and you should have enough in your warehouse. So when the customer make the order, you can send right away. So those are the things that are making these two systems different. So in one, you're saving some money in terms of warehousing and space, but you're losing maybe customers that cannot wait. They need the orders right away. In the other one, you might be providing a better quality of service because you are providing the product when they need it, but you're spending a lot of money in keeping these warehouses full of product when they are not necessarily needed. So those are the major differences. So this is trying to illustrate the process. So here's the customer order arrives. That's the line. That's the push-pull boundary. So in the push process, you are doing the manufacturing, everything before that happens. So when the order is made, you have the product available. In the pull process, on the other hand, you're waiting for that order to arrive in order to start the process of production for that order. Okay, so let's talk about the supply chain strategy framework. The mission, strategy, tactics, and decisions. The mission is the reason for existence of an organization. So very important when you're looking for jobs and you're looking for interviews, you need to know for the company that you're interviewing for, should search for the mission statement. So that basically tells you what the company is looking for. What is the impact? What are they trying to achieve? So all those are going to be connected with the way you produce, you manufacture, and you put the product into the hands of the customers. The strategy is a plan for achieving the organizational goals. Tactics are the actions taken to accomplish the strategies, and the operational decisions, which is what we are dealing with, are day-to-day decisions that support those tactics. So if we look from a point of view of a student, we have an undergrad. The life strategy for TED will be who would like to have a career in business, have a good job, and earn enough income to live comfortably. So we can split this mission into 4 areas: the goal, the strategy, and the tactics, and the operations. Goal will be a successful career with good income. The strategy may be obtaining a master's degree. Tactics selects a college and a concentration, and the operations will be to register, buy books, take courses, study, graduate, and get the job. And this is just one strategy, right? From the point of view of this student. So in terms of the supply chain and business strategy, we have to develop a competitive business strategy that involves product development strategy, having a portfolio of products, timing of product introductions, and so on. Marketing strategy, making sure that customers give themselves an opportunity to try new products and continue to buy those that are already there. And then supply chain strategy. So how are we gonna deliver all these products and services to our customers? So you see at this part, there are 5 pieces: new product development, marketing and sales, and then operation, distribution, and service. All those related to the supply chain strategy, or 3 pieces of those 5 are related to operations, supply chain strategy. So new product development, you have the involvement of many areas of your company, including finance, accounting, information technology, human resources, all of them impacting the 5 areas that are listed here. In terms of strategy for product development, it relates to technologies for future operations, like, for example, the development of patents and set of products, services. If you're not familiar, most of these big companies, they will have a research department. Like, for instance, when I was working for General Motors, they assigned me to the research component of the business. And these people, what they will do is just look at opportunities for designing new parts, new products. Doesn't have to be a specific product, but for example, I was involved in the redesign of an air compressor. So they were looking for not only redesigning the product, but also improving the way the compressor was manufactured. So in order for them to make a high quality air compressor, and in order for increase the number of units that they can produce. So patents basically are this instrument or these documents that will make sure that those new developments or new designs that you're creating as a company, you keep the rights for those parts or those products, so nobody else can replicate that, and you keep that for a certain amount of years. So that gives you some competitive advantage, especially if those parts or components are creating an additional demand for your product. If you know about cars and trucks, something that General Motors was able to do with the trucks was to redesign the tailgate for the trucks. So now that's a patent they have, and they're using that as a marketing tool to attract more customers. They will keep that for a long period, and then at some point you will see other car companies creating similar tailgates, but they cannot do it now because they have the rights for that design. And those are the type of things that you will see companies creating, which gives them some type of advantage. So be the technology leader. For example, at some point, IBM workstations, many universities were using only those, and offer many products like Dell computers. Offer products for locals. So this was in India. They were producing a car that was very cheap, and that was meeting the needs for the people in this country. So we're talking about a car for $2,500 and has some specific dimensions, a top speed of 105 kilometers an hour and a mileage of 50 miles a gallon. Not bad, right? But since it has some specific design, we never saw this car in the United States because it was not meeting some of the requirements in terms of safety and so on. But for that country, understanding the needs for the locals, that was a competitive advantage in terms of a car, a transportation method. Marketing and sales strategy relates to positioning, pricing, and promotion of products. So I think we all are familiar with what marketing is trying to do. So some examples include never offer more than 40% discount, everyday low price, like at Walmart, and demand smoothing via coupons, like for example, in Best Buy. Supply chain management strategy relates to procurement, transportation, storage, and delivery. So for example, never use more than one supplier for every input. Never expedite orders just because they are late, and always use domestic suppliers. We were talking about this within the sales seasons, not in advance. Because when you have these high demands, you will have a lot of people asking for products, and if your suppliers are in other countries, like what happens with the COVID situation, like we were asking for gloves, masks, and all those items, you don't have a supplier, domestic supplier, and you're relying on international suppliers, then when the demand increases, you will not be able to get as many as you need. So if you have domestic suppliers, you can always increase the production. But at the same time, if you always do that, then you're losing some ways to save money, right? So again, it's a balance. So fitting the supply chain to the customer and vice versa, understand the customer wishes, understand the capability of your supply chain, match the wishes with the capabilities. So the challenge is how to meet the extensive wishes with limited capabilities. That's the challenge. And also with the uncertainty in terms of all the areas related to the supply chain. Achieving strategy fit consistent with the supply chain management and competitive strategies. So we need to fit the supply chains to the customer. So understanding the customer, the range of demand, the product load size in terms of seasonal products, response time. If we think about an example like organ transplantation, you have a patient that is needed a transplant, making sure that when one becomes available, the person that needs the organ is also available, and you can match them quickly, so you can do the transplantation successfully. Service level, product availability, product variety, innovation, and accommodating poor quality. Everything implied in the demand, uncertainty for supply chain, implied trouble for the supply chain. So the less information we're able to control, or the less information we have about all these areas, the more difficult it is to make these decisions. So we want to minimize this uncertainty. We want to get as much information as possible, and then we want to make good decisions based on those. Contributors to the implied demand uncertainty. So as I mentioned, right, the uncertainty is one of those areas that we cannot control, but we can plan for it. So some commodities like detergent and long lead time steel, these are commodities that we can get easily. And then customized products like high fashion clothing, emergency steel for maintenance replacement, and so on. Those are customized, so they require a little bit more process. They don't have an established demand, so they are not produced always. So we need to understand the customer need, right, in order to respond to those needs using our capabilities. So what we are trying to illustrate here are the both extremes in terms of the demand uncertainty when it's low and when it's high, and the customer need. So if the implied demand is high, the responsiveness, and then the price on the other side. So when it's low, customer needs could be low too. So the price is what's going to help the product or the person make a decision in terms of the availability, which products they are going to consume. But if the implied uncertainty is high and we're dealing with a customized product, then there's a high need for us to be able to meet those specified demand by the customers, those customized needs. So responsiveness is going to be very important. The price might not be as important as you being able to satisfy those requirements for that customized product. So you can see that both extremes here, decisions are made different based on those situations. So short lead time, product variety, distribution channel variety, high rate of innovation, and high customer service level all increase the implied demand uncertainty. Understanding the supply chains cost responsiveness trade-off. So you see here, we have a efficient frontier that is telling us when is becoming inefficient and when is an efficient way of operating. So we have on this left side the fixed responsiveness, and then at the bottom on the x-axis we have the cost in dollars. So what we're trying to illustrate here is that if the cost is very high, we need to be very responsive to the customer needs. And then as we move towards the right, lower cost, that fixed responsiveness can start slowing down or going down, as you can see that curve. So the question is, why decreasing slope for this efficiency frontier? Basically, that's the answer. You want to, if the customer is willing to pay a high price or high amount of money for a product, you have to be able of meeting those needs very responsive way, very high responsive way. So as low as the cost goes down, that means that the customer might have more options, more other companies to offer the same product. So your level of responsiveness will be basically you're putting more resources in meeting those demands. So as the cost or the cost goes down, more options for the customers, you might not be able to offer that high responsiveness because you have to compete with other manufacturers. So that responsiveness will go down in terms of the efficiency. And then you want to stay in this region, right? If it goes in this region, means that you are not going to be meeting the customer needs, or you're not going to be making enough money to satisfy the cost of production. Achieving strategic fit, which is based on capabilities. So again, the responsiveness spectrum on the y-axis and the implied uncertainty in the x-axis. So the zone of strategic fit will be here, right? So you want to stay within that zone. and you're trying to balance out the uncertainty and the demand and your responsivity spectrum. So efficient will be low cost. Responsive will be very high cost in terms of the supply chain. So for example, if you're looking at a meal, lunch buffet will be very low cost, and the uncertainty in terms of the items that you will have to offer is very low as well. You're going to be offering the same menu or the same food every time. But if you're looking at the uncertainty in terms of preparing a gourmet dinner, you have to be very responsive to the needs of the customer. So there's going to be uncertainty in the demand because you don't know how many customers will have that specific request for the meal. So you want to stay in here in this strategic fit zone. Everything outside those regions will make the supply chains inefficient, and it will cost you more than what you have, or you're not going to be able to make profit. So I have some information here, top 10 retailers reported in 2008. So you can look at this on your own. We have Walmart, Carrefour, the Home Depot, and Tesco in the United Kingdom. What is the big retailer strategy? Walmart efficiency. So we want to have large amounts of products. We're buying in bulk, so everything is cheaper, and I can sell those products to customers at a low cost. So I buy 10,000 lights. I'm gonna go and get those very cheap, and then I go sell those to the customers in a very low price. That's the strategy. That's the efficiency. So Target will be more quality and then provide a better service. Carrefour will be international ambience. Kmart, which no longer exists, I think, or if we have Kmart's very low amount of them right now. When I was young, I remember Kmart was all over the place. We didn't have many Walmarts, and now Walmart have taken over, but they didn't have a specific strategy. It was confusing. It was a squeeze between Target and Walmart, and they were relying a lot on coupon sales. So the question is, those coupons stabilize or destabilize the supply chain? Well, it will depend on how well planned are those, right? So if you're changing your coupons every day or every week without planning for your supply chain distribution, then that can destabilize your supply chains. Kmart and Sears merged in 2004. So now Sears have taken over. Kmart get cash, and then Sears get presence outside the mall. So that's what basically happened. Other factors: multiple products in the supply chain, multiple customers for a given product, separate supply chains or tailored supply chains. So for example, Barnes & Noble, retailing and e-tailing. So they were not able to transition to selling their product online successfully. So that's why companies such as Amazon were able to take their market. Competitors, more faster and global. Online program compete globally. So if you're able to transition to an online program, then you know that you can reach more customers around the world. Other factors, the product life cycle. So if you have a product that is you know that is a technology that at some point is going to be replaced, you have to think about those things too. So life cycle, supply chain management strategy moves toward efficiency and low implied uncertainty as product age. So for example, air travel is becoming more efficient. Southwest Airlines led the drive for efficiency. So now we have more companies that are following their strategy. For example, flat screen TV producers and of Optronics of Taiwan was looking for ways to make its supply chains more efficient. Replacement cells, selling to replace broken units. For example, AC replacement is about 50% of the market. So again, air conditioners, we have all these parts. Every summer in Texas, you get people buying all these parts that are needed to make their AC to continue to work. So achieving strategic fit over life cycle, we have again efficiency, the demand, the uncertainty in demand, and again the curve. So you want to stay in that zone of strategic fit. Integration. Integration is the central theme in supply chain management, building synergies by integrating business functions, departments, and companies. So you see the departments showing up here in terms of facilities and companies. So the strategic scope involves all these entities. So we have the suppliers, the manufacturer, the distributor, the retailer, and the customer. And then we have to take into account the competitive strategy, the product development strategy, the supply chain strategy, and the marketing strategy. So the last piece is in terms of supply chain drivers and obstacles. So in terms of how to achieve efficiency and responsiveness, we have the supply chain structure that involves inventory, transportation, and the facilities. These are the logistical drivers. And then we have the cross-functional drivers that involve the information that you have to make decisions, the sourcing, and the pricing. So in terms of inventory, convenience involves the cycle inventory. So for example, non-customer buys X one by one. So you know that you have to provide a product that involves 12, 24, 36 X as part of your product. And unstable demand is one that varies with the seasons. So for example, bathing suits, Christmas toys, and computer sales. And the randomness, keeping safety inventory. So when you have a need, you can push that into your customers. And then the pipeline inventory is a working process or transit. So for example, if you know that you are going to produce certain product like computers or computers for cars, making sure that if you need a part, you have those in process or you have a safety inventory for those. So little law can be used to get the amount or to estimate the amount of products that you are able to produce based on these three areas. So the long run average or the expected value in terms of the inventory, the output per time or the throughput, and the delay time, basically the amount of time that is needed for processing. So if you have those three, you can get a good understanding of how many parts you can produce in terms of your output. So knowing the flow time, the throughput, the pipeline process, and the inventory, all those are important in terms of your planning. The transportation, many ways of getting your product to the expected destination. So air, truck, rail, ship, pipeline, electronic. So depending on the type of product that you are producing and also your destination, you might choose between the different modes. In terms of facility, having a production that is flexible versus dedicated. Flexibility in terms of cost, service. Can your instructor teach music as well as supply chain management? Most likely that's no, so that you don't have that flexibility. But if you can cross-train some of your instructor to help you teach courses in many departments, then that's something that is helpful for the facility or in this case, the university. In terms of sports, playmaker who choose well is rare, not necessarily now, right? But The example is trying to say, like, you cross-train your players in this case, and then you can obtain a benefit for that. Inventory-like operations: receiving, pre-packaging, storing, picking, packaging, sorting, accumulating, shipping. So all of those, lots, lot storage, if you need more space, I say it's recycle, that's a typo. So for example, there are other options such as what's known as cross-docking in Walmart. So that's not necessarily a warehouse, it's a facility in which you can get your trucks. Let's say you're bringing trucks from many places in Texas to this cross-docking facility, and you're basically taking the products from those trucks and you're rearranging them into other trucks so they can go and deliver their final destination. So for example, we have a truck that is coming from, I don't know, Dallas, that is bringing a specific product, and you only have a supplier. That's your only supplier, the one that's coming from Dallas with that product. That supplier can go to this cross-docking location and bring the product, and that product can be split to many trucks, and those trucks can deliver to different cities, like in Texas. So that's the idea. Information, the role in the supply chain, the connection between the various stages in the supply chain. This is crucial to daily operations of each stage in the supply chain. For example, production, scheduling, and inventory levels. The role of information in the competitive strategy. This allows supply chains to become more efficient and more responsive at the same time. So having more information allows you to make better decisions. Information technology, Anderson Windows, with window manufacturer whose customers can choose from a library of 50,000 designs or create their own. And then they can order automatically and send directly to the factory. That's a competitive strategy. Characteristics of the good information. You have information, you can use that to design your strategy, global scope. So you have a good understanding of the demand. You have a good understanding of how your product can fit that demand. And then you can develop your strategy. And then using that information, you can coordinate your decisions using analytical models. And then that can get you to having success in terms of planning your supply chain. What type of information? Information has to be accurate, accessible, up-to-date, and in the correct form, in a format that you can use. If not, database predictability. How difficult is to import data into SIP? So if you don't have the information in the right format, then you cannot pass that information to your tools. Quality of information. Information drives the decision. Good information means good decisions. The less information you have, the more uncertainty you might end up with in your process. So IT helps. So having information in terms of material requirement planning, of MRP, enterprise resource planning, SIP, electronic data interchange, all this help you have a good visibility of the data, of your production, of your demand, and then help you make better decisions. Relevant information, you have to plan. Again, there's a cost associated also with keeping data that you don't need. So you don't want to harvest a lot of data that is not needed. So making sure that you fish for the right information, that you keep the right information, and you use that information to make decisions. So ERP is a business management software. Push MRP versus pull, demand information transmitted quickly through the supply chain. It provides real-time information, coordination, information sharing. It is expensive and difficult to implement. About 25% of ERP installations are canceled within a year. So it's not for everybody. About of ERP installations go over the budget. In terms of investment, you can see how now in the 2000s, how much is going to improving this information collection, IT information to make decisions. So a lot of investment because we have seen the importance of getting that information and then using that information to make better decisions. Sourcing, the role in the supply chain, set of processes required to purchase goods and services in a supply chain, supplier selection, single versus multiple suppliers, contract negotiation, all that very relevant, very important. The role in the competitive strategy, sourcing is crucial. It affects efficiency and responsiveness in a supply chain. In-house versus outsourced decisions, improving efficiency and responsiveness. TI, more than half of the revenue spent for sourcing. Cisco sources low-end products, for example, home routers from China. Pricing, the role in the supply chain. Pricing determines the amount to charge customers in a supply chain. Pricing strategy can be used to match demand and supply. That's what is called price elasticity. So do you know yours, meaning in terms of how far you can go in terms of changing your price and customers will not complain? Role in the competitive strategy, to use pricing strategy to improve efficiency and responsiveness. Low price and low product availability, vary price by response time. So Amazon provides faster delivery, but it's more expensive. So if you want to get products like in one day, you have to pay more. Components of pricing decisions, pricing and economies of scale. So again, you buy more, you pay less. But that has an additional cost for you keeping things in your warehouse. Everyday low pricing versus high-low pricing. So are you going to keep your pricing low or are you going to be doing high and low? I know, for example, what I have observed from Kohl's is that they can change their prices quickly. They have these electronic boards and they can adjust those prices quickly. And that's an interesting strategy. You don't see that in many stores. Like, so one day you can go, you can see something, and then they can adjust that quickly. Fixed price versus menu pricing, depending on the product and services. Packaging, delivery location, time, customer pickup, all those things, building, bundling products and services. So if you think about Disney, Hulu, and ESPN all providing those services in bundles and charging less. So that's a pricing strategy. Consideration for supply chain drivers. So these are the drivers: inventory, transportation, facilities. So all these three related to facilities design, information sourcing, and pricing. So inventory, so what is the efficiency, the cost of holding, and then the responsiveness, the availability. So if you put a lot of money into keeping your warehouse full, that's a cost, but you're going to be able to respond quickly. If you don't put money into your warehouses, you don't want to keep warehouses, or you want to keep a very small amount of items in inventory, that's going to save you some money in terms of efficiency, but it's going to cost you in terms of being able to respond. Transportation, consolidation, so you want to move orders together, or are you going to do like Amazon, that they have their small trucks and they can deliver to customers when needed. So that if you consolidate, you're going to lose some speed. If you do speed, you're going to you're going to incur in a higher cost when compared to consolidation. Facilities, same thing, consolidation versus dedicated, and proximity and flexibility. Major obstacles to achieving fit. Supply chain is big, variety of products and services, spoiled customers, multiple owners, and globalization. So goal is to have local optimization on lack of global fit. So trying to manage that trade-off is also important. Dealing with multiple owners, local optimization. So we have information coordination, thinking about the legal and ethical issues, making sure that you don't expose information that don't need to be exposed. Especially if you're dealing with the healthcare industry, you want to make sure that you have very well-structured information coordination, contractual coordination, mechanism to align local objectives with global ones. So you need to make sure that everything is in order, everybody's aware, and that's based on a contract. Coordination with real options. That's rare in practice. And without coordination, misleading reliance on metrics. So the average safety inventory, average incoming shipment size, average purchase price of raw materials and revenue. Instability and randomness is increasing product variety. These are part of the obstacles in achieving fit. So if you have high instability and high randomness, for example, if you have very high product variety, that could be part of it. Shrinking product life cycles. So if you keep your product with a very small amount of time in your shelves, that can create some obstacles to achieve fit. I mean, I'm going back to the examples for the car industry. You design a new car, you have to keep that car for about 6-7 years into your selling that car for about 6-7, often to 10 years. So in order for you to stabilize your supply chains, and you can make up for the money that you invested in that car. So if you shrink that product life cycle, then you know that you're going to incur on an additional cost, because you're going to have to, if you integrate a new product and you remove that one, you're going to incur on an extra cost on, again, bringing new suppliers, in improving your supply chains in terms of designing and manufacturing that product. Customer fragmentation, push for customization and segmentation. So people are trying to get more from their suppliers, from their manufacturing, and fragmentation of supply chain ownership based on globalization. So if something happened, let's say in the supply chain goes wrong, finding the person in charge of that error is very difficult. Common problems, lack of relevant supply chain metrics, how to measure responsiveness, that's very difficult to measure. Poor inventory status information, like for example, theft, major problem for furniture retailers, transaction errors, retailers with inaccurate inventory records, information delays, data information, incompatible information system, misplaced inventory. How many of you, like when you put an order, it never arrives, you have to call, nobody knows what happened, they don't want to return your money, you have to deal with that process. Spoilage, active ingredients in the product are losing their properties. So if you get a product that has been on a shelf for a long period of time, maybe when you try to use it, it's not going to perform as expected. So product quality and yield, lack of visibility in the supply chains, as we mentioned already. Common problems, poor delivery status information, not knowing the order status, poor IT design, unreliable duplicate data, we mentioned already, ignoring uncertainty. So you know that things can change, but you're not paying attention of that information, not making decisions based on that. Internal customer discrimination, give a lower priority to internal customers than external customers. That's something that is being out there now with the telephone companies and the cable companies. Like you have a customer already, you're bringing other customers, they get different deals and so on. poor integration, elusive inventory costs, and supply chains instead of the insensitive product design. Okay, so that gets you to the end of today's lecture. Let me pass the exam, and we're gonna use the rest of the hour to discuss the exam. Okay, so the average for the exam was 76. There's a high variability in the score, so I think that's why the average was lower than I expected. But we have 32 as lower score, and then we have 96 as a higher score. So there's a very high variability in the scores. So let's see. Brandon, on here. Alec, Brenda, Agnes, John, David, Steven Martinez, Danielle Martinez, Catherine, Lance, Paul,
Here.
Christian, Mark, Michael Johnson, Tanner, Derek, Ian.
I'm here on Zoom.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you want to see the exam, you will have to come on Wednesday. Jonathan, Bailey, Orton, Zambrano, Orlin. Thank you. Lauren, James, Taylor, Jay, Cameron, Connor, Jacob, Kramer, Jesse, Jeffrey, Brandon, Matthew, Naham Luhan, Walid, and Daugu, Sophia, Alison, Brian, and Victor. And so most of the people that are here did very well. The surprise, I'm not surprised, because coming to class makes a difference. So let's go through the exam. I noticed that most of you struggle with the multiple choice. So I will keep that in mind for future exams. Might be a little bit different. Maybe I'll use true or false questions. But here are the questions. Output from the process selection procedure, which are the processes, equipment, and raw material required for in-house production of products, are generally given in the form of a route sheet, the C. In process design and operations, process chart is a combination of the assembly chart and the route sheet. We talk about these things in lecture 2. In department planning, product layout is more appropriate for when there is a low variety in high volume. So for this one, we had a graph in which we showed the different dimensions. In department planning, product family is more appropriate when there's a medium volume production and medium product variety. So again, product layout, low variety, high volume, product family, medium volume, medium product. Layout procedure require the length and width of the building and the number of bands. So that will be MCRAF. Remember that S strategy that we follow with MCRAS. On the width design phase, the affinity diagram created in the facilities design. While considering flow within product department, the circular flow pattern is used when one operator works on more than 2 workstations. So we have a figure at a show in class in which we have different flows and where the operator was sitting. So for the circular flow, we have the 3 tables and then the operator in the middle. The craft is regarded as an improvement procedure. Which of the following steps is part of the systematic layout planning procedure? All of the above. So we look at this, we look at many practical examples, and we have a lecture on practical examples, and we went through this process. And then layout algorithms can be classified according to the type of input they require. Algorithms that use quantitative flow data obtain the information from a relationship diagram and then from 2 charts. I'm sorry, the activity relationship chart and the relationship diagram. Okay, so let's look at the first problem. And this, I think it was exactly from one of the assignments. So I was assuming that this was one of those problems that everybody was going to get right. So here's the solution. So if you want to look at the step-by-step process, it is a problem from the assignment. And then this one was new. There were 3 questions here. And the value was stated in the exam. So 20 points. The first part was 8 points. List all department pairs that craft will consider exchanging. So we have all those that share a wall, and then the ones that have the same area. So, for example, AF, they were not together, but they have the same area. So some of you missed that one. The rest of them are basically those that are sharing a, and then B and E have the same area. So, so those were the ones that I think most of you missed. But there were 8 possible exchanges, 2 points each. And then the cost, we have the distance, we have the flow, and the unit cost. So for each one of them, so we have the cost for AC, AE, BD, BF, CE, D, and EF. So we multiply the flow, the unit cost for each one of them, and then we add. It was 4,395. And then the question, so if you got that part B wrong, I was not taking points for C. I was giving you partial credit, but because most likely your answer was going to be wrong. So it was correct for the value that you obtained. That's what I'm trying to say. So I graded C based on what you obtained for B. So the answer was no. If you got 4,395, the answer was no, because the new layout is not better because of the cost. And then this one, I think what I saw, some of you did I will say half of you didn't do the process correctly. So I took some points. Then the other half did it well. And then I have a small group of students that did everything right, and then they were not able to identify the cells. So there was three groups. Those were the three groups. So here are the steps. We have to add the totals for each row and each column. So we did that, and then we sort from largest to smallest for the rows, and from largest to smallest for, smallest to largest for the columns. And then we look at each column, and we start moving to the right. And then we look at each one of the rows, and we start moving up. So at the end, we have two cells, which are listed here. So those are 365, and then 412 is another cell. So two cells, there were no conflict in the cells. And then the last question, very simple, difference between construction type and improvement type. So for construction type, basically you're starting from scratch. You don't have an initial solution. And for the improvement, you're starting with the initial solution and you're trying to improve that. So if you answer that, you didn't get the points, let me know. But I think I was able to read the answers there. If you lose points, it's because something was not correct there. Questions? Yes. For this one? No. Because you can split this here. And then 5 will use 2 and 3 will use 2. So you can group them together. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so that's all. I'll see you on Wednesday.